I get to have fun today because I just get to tell you my story. And maybe it's going to be a little bit of a break because it's not going to be so businessy. It's a good story that leads to how I found my purpose and how that has directed me into business. But it's not necessarily just tons and tons of, direct step-by-steps. It's more so how we can look back on our life. We can self-reflect. We can look back and see, here are all these key turning points. Here are all these moments that somehow I learned a lesson from that. Maybe I didn't realize it in the moment, but later looking back, that gave me purpose. That started to shape my purpose. Because if you can see on here, that's what I said. I said discovering purpose through self-reflection and self-betterment. And also I wanted to add on to that selflessness, because we talked about it's about others, not about ourselves. Because I don't believe that purpose is ever found in self-fulfillment. I think it's found in helping the people that are placed in the lane in front of us. So, thank you. So, just without further ado, I'll go ahead and get started because it's kind of a couple of big pieces to it. But so the first thing that I would say is that I'm from Arkansas, but I grew up there, but I wasn't born there. I was actually born in Los Gatos, California, to a teen mom who was 14 years old. She had been in foster care her entire life. No family. She was emancipated when she was 14, and if you know what that means she was basically living on her own as like an adult at 14 years old, which for me, I would have failed. Totally and completely failed if I had to live by myself at 14 years old, and not only that, but become pregnant and have to have a child, raise a child, in which she tried to do that for 2 years. She really tried, and she had to work multiple jobs, but worse than that, she had an abusive boyfriend. And so I was put in the hospital multiple times for abusement. And by the third time, and she was too, but by the third time that we had both been put in the hospital, she basically just said, that's it. That's enough. She didn't tell him. She left the hospital. She took me, and she found some family apparently that she had down in Arizona. And she just called and said, hey, can I please stay with you? I'm just in this really bad place. And they said, you know what? Come on, we'll help you. So they took us in for about 6 months. And as we started this process, about halfway across the country in Arkansas were these two amazing people named John and Beth Weisner that looked nothing like me. But they were the best parents, and they just wanted a child so bad, but they couldn't have kids. And on top of that, they couldn't adopt in Arkansas because they had really strict laws, and my parents were too old because they were 35, which I'm about to turn 31, so that hurts my feelings a little bit. But they said that they were too old, and they couldn't adopt. And so they just went around the country looking for all these adoption agencies, and the only one that would allow them to adopt was where? In Arizona. And the other cool thing about this story that I haven't brought up yet is that at the time I was 2.5 years old, and I couldn't talk at all. They thought I had some serious learning disabilities, maybe some mental issues or just something, because I couldn't talk. I didn't really understand language. I didn't understand how things worked together. I didn't really, when they would communicate with me and try to get me to talk back, I didn't really understand it, and they didn't know why, and so they just diagnosed me with learning disabilities. My mother is passionate about children with disabilities. And she has been an educational examiner for Little Rock School District for years. So basically what she does is she tests kids for learning disabilities and the best way to help them. So of course, whenever they tell her about me, she's just like, yeah, let me have this child, please. Like, this child is for me. And so luckily my birth mother chose them, and my mother, as soon as she got me, she just started testing me, and she started to see, like, okay, what's wrong? How can I help her? And came to find out I really didn't have anything wrong with me. It was just that no one had ever worked with me at the time periods I really needed it. No one had ever told me, what I needed to do, or, my mom was working all the time, and she was leaving me with friends, and I was basically just being left in cribs, and nobody was talking to me. And so my mom, of course, is bawling, devastated, but she worked so hard. She got me all the help that she could, and she got me in school, started school on time, so I was able to get in the grade I should have been in, and she just worked with me until I caught up. And I ended up getting to well, I was in competitive speech all through high school, and then in college I got a master's in communication, and then I went a little further and got a double master's, so that I got one in organizational communication and interpersonal communication. And what was really cool about this is that my mom never told me about my learning disabilities or the fact that I was dyslexic or the fact that I really couldn't talk at first. She never told me any of this, so I don't really have any memory of it. I graduate with my master's, I'm walking across the stage, and afterwards my mom is just bawling, and I'm thinking like, okay, Mom, I know I graduated, but cool down, you're embarrassing me in front of my friends, trying to do my cute little hat throw, right? And finally she says, Helen, I have to tell you this. And she told me all that. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense why in 8th grade I couldn't read out loud, and I was embarrassed, and I was sitting there having to read ahead and then try to read it, you know. And I realized in that moment, wow. I was like, Mom, why didn't you tell me this? And she said, I don't want to box you in. I don't want to tell you what you couldn't do. It was like, why would I tell you that? And the rest of your life you say, oh, I'm dyslexic. Oh, no, I can't really speak. I don't want to do it. It's like, what good is that going to serve? I want you to find purpose in whatever you want to find purpose in. And I realized, looking back, we're talking about self-reflection. When I look back on that moment and I look at everything, my mom was preparing me for something. I didn't know what, but she was preparing me. And more than that, and this is kind of just a side note, though, that's important to me, that I hope that you'll take, is that sometimes we have to release our own expectations for how we think life's going to go. We have to release our expectations for a bigger plan. And the reason I say that is because neither one of those people wanted that script. My parents weren't like, oh, yay, we are struggling to have kids. Yes. My birth mother did not want to grow up in the lifestyle that she had, right? And yet, in two separate, very sad situations, somehow they came back together, all came together and worked out in this perfect plan. So this little girl who had no hope to everybody else was with the exact right person she was supposed to be with. So sometimes, if you're in a situation where you feel like, you know what, this isn't meeting my expectations for how I thought my life would be, instead maybe look out and say, what's in my lane? What's right in front of me? Who can I help? What am I supposed to do? Because I truly believe, going back to what I said before, that purpose is not found in your next business adventure and meeting your next goal. That's not what it's about. Purpose is in that moment of finding, who am I? What can I do to help people? And then at every single moment of your day, fulfilling that purpose. Whether that is opening a door for somebody, being kind, spending a little extra time with somebody who needs help at work, or a kid, or whatever it is, fill in the blank, but you have something, you have a unique ability that needs to be given to people in front of you, or to a job in front of you, and you can do that no matter what your job is. So, moving on, so this happens, so that's my first thing, so I'm adopted. I get to college, before I graduated with my master's, so I'm an undergraduate, and I'm in this class with the hardest teacher in the comm department. Did anybody ever have a teacher that was like the scary, terrifying teacher that everyone hated? Right? Okay. Well, this teacher, I didn't necessarily hate her. I don't really just hate people. But she hated me. And it wasn't because, I'm not saying that because she gave me a bad grade, because we actually worked some things out. But it was the very first day of class. I'm a senior, so I am it. And I am wearing my little Nike shorts because that was cool, really cool at the time. I had my Ugg boots on because it was midsummer, and apparently I need high-top Ugg boots with Nike shorts. And a V-neck neon, probably Victoria's Secret tank top or something like that, and then my hair on top of my head and a big messy bun with my face makeup looking like I didn't try, but yet I spent like 30 minutes on it kind of thing. And so I get to class, I have my multicolored notebooks, I sit at the very front row because I'm going to make this teacher love me. I have my pens for all my color coding I'm going to do with my notes. And I'm sitting there and she walks in. I remember looking, before she walked in, I looked around at everybody and I was like, oh, these are the really smart kids in the comm department. Like, these are like the kids that all have the internships and they're always in the teachers' rooms and, they're always here at the department. So I'm sitting here thinking, maybe I signed up for the wrong class. I think this might be, is there another one this time period because this is going to be really hard? And she walks in, so I sit up and I act all happy and smile at her, and no lie, this woman looks around and she's like, and she sees me and she goes, and just walks away, and I'm like, what? People love me. I'm so nice. And so I think, God, this woman's supposed to love me. What is going on? And she goes, okay, so we're just going to go ahead and stand up and say our name and what we're an expert in. And she looks straight at me and goes, and we're going to start over here. And she said, every single one of these kids was like saving the world. They were curing cancer. They were doing, name like the best thing you could possibly do in the U.S., and they were doing it, right? They all had their purpose. They all knew what they were doing. And I'm sitting here trying to think of something to compete, right? So I'm like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? I'm good at dancing. No, that's not going to work. Okay, I'm really outgoing. No, that's not going to work. And then I was like, I really do a lot with my sororities. No. And I realized, y'all, honestly, I realized I'm not good at anything. Not because I'm not good, but because I really didn't care about anyone but myself. And I'd been so focused on myself that I had not been looking out at what I could be doing to serve the world. And so it gets to me, and I'm thinking this right when she goes, yes. And I was like, oh, Helen, are you going to say it? And I was like, yep, you're going to have to say it. So I stood up and I looked at her and I kind of looked at the class. And I go, my name's Helen Weisner, and I just realized I'm not an expert in anything that matters. And my teacher looked at me, her face, y'all, she was like, and she looked around the room and she looked at me and she goes, well, there's hope for you yet. And after class, that woman talked me into getting my master's. I told her I couldn't get a master's. She was like, oh, you're going to get a master's. If I just work with you every single day, you're going to get that master's. And she did. I got accepted in the first round of applicants. That should not have happened. I had the grade point, but it was not like, everybody else had like 4 points, right? And I'm like somewhere in that, like, I like to party still, but I get my grades. You know what I mean? Like, I was not there. So I was like, okay, somehow I got accepted. And she worked with me every single year. I cried with that woman, I yelled with that woman, and she was like, you are better than this. And she worked with me, and I still write her letters and just say, thank you. Thank you for priming me, because again, I had no idea, but that woman was teaching me how to write correct grammar. She was teaching me how to write, she was teaching me how to speak, she was teaching me how to understand my own thoughts and be able to relay them into a message. Things that I was just taking for granted, like, I know how to talk, so I can do that, right? No, you can't. And she was able to teach me that. Okay, so that's graduate school. Now I'm going into graduate school. So this is the beginning of my transformational period. And I really went through about a 2-year span where I grew mentally, physically, emotionally. I just became a better version of myself. Right? And I was really proud of the person I had become. And towards the end of that, I meet this guy, naturally. So then the transformational period ends for a little bit. Just being honest. But I meet this guy named Craig, and he literally has the most vivacious personality. I mean, I have a vivacious personality, but his, like, doubles mine. So he is able to just, you're going to love me, no matter if you realize it or not, and he has decided to become a country singer. Just decided. Like, that. When I say he decided, I mean, that's really what he did. He's like, I think today I'll be a country singer. And so he did it. And he did, and within 2 years, he was signed with a record label in Nashville and was touring nationally with his band and all that jazz. And so I'm dating this guy, and the year before we had started dating, I had gotten first runner-up at Miss Arkansas. So of course he asked me, so what, you gonna do that again? And I said, no, I mean, I think, I'm just ready to get married. And so he was like, no, I think you need to do that again. I was like, what? It's like, you want to marry me? Well, no. But no, really, he really was trying to say, I think you should do it. And he kept saying it, and he kept saying it, and he kept saying it. And finally I go, okay, fine, I'll do it, whatever. So I do it, I end up winning, which was cool at the moment, but the coolest thing is after I win, I turn around, and Craig's right there, and he proposes. And actually, okay, so I should tell you how that really went down. I was really happy, and then I realized Craig was on stage, and I was like, are you kidding me? This is my moment. I see you on stage every single Saturday, actually Thursday through Saturday, and I can't have one moment? Yeah, and so I'm smiling, he's tapping me, and I just kind of kept going. And he kept going, Helen, Helen, Helen. And I go, smiling, because like, what are you doing? And he goes, can I talk to you for a second? I was like, are you kidding me? And he goes, okay, Helen, I'm trying to propose to you. And so then I was like, oh. And so then all the other girls were, oh my goodness, and everybody backed away, and it was so sweet. But up to that point, it was actually quite hilarious because I was really angry. But I don't remember anything he said. I just remember him staring at me like, are you going to say something? And I go, oh, yes, of course. So I go to Miss USA, and I just remember going and feeling like, I don't know, like, can I really say I just want to model? Like, basically, I'm not saying that's bad, but I just felt weird telling people, I just want you to take pictures of me. Like, that just wasn't my thing. And whereas I will say, like, I have some friends that are beautiful models in LA, and I am like, you kill it. But I cannot just kill it in front of a camera all day. I can't. And I was like, I just don't think this is me. As I went, and I ended up winning like the most motivational story award thing, and then I got best body that year, so Craig was excited about that. He told everybody at the shows. But I would say that during that time, I just felt kind of like, where was that fire? Where did that go? What's my purpose now? What do I do? I don't know. I mean, I got my things, I checked my boxes. I thought these are my goals. I thought this would make me happy, and I'm not. So one of my very last appearances as Miss Arkansas was at the Northwest Arkansas Children's Shelter. And of course, that was my platform. And so I go around the whole place with the woman leading me around. I'm helping kids, smiling, taking photos. And I don't know what it was, but something all of a sudden hit me, and it was like, whoa, Helen, this could be you. This isn't just, you say in your narrative that you're adopted and you say all this stuff, but it's like that really hasn't clicked in your head. I mean, do you realize this could be your life? And I ended up telling the woman, I just feel so sick. I'm so sorry. I'm going to have to leave. I'll come back tomorrow. I leave. I get in the car, and I just start hysterically bawling. And I'm sitting there saying, God, why? Like, why did you choose me? And why are these kids not getting adopted? And I don't understand. I'm just crying out to him. And finally, he just said to me, like, Helen, I'm sorry, but life isn't about you. It's not about you. And 2, you've been living your whole life for your purpose and not for mine. You're not living a purpose that serves anyone but you. And this is why I need you. I brought you here at this moment, in this city, in this space, for a purpose. And if you're going to serve yourself, then that's okay. Because we can all, no matter what, we can all serve our own agendas and try to fulfill our own desires, but it's never going to make us happy because there's always going to be something else we want. But if we can say, okay, instead I'm going to serve a bigger purpose, one that serves others, I'm going to stop looking at myself and what's going to make me happy and say, how can I help you? How can I make the group happy? How can I make the world around me better? All of a sudden there's a whole new perspective that shifts in you, and your purpose every single day isn't rooted in your own happiness. It's actually rooted in purpose. And so I said that day, okay, I'm no longer doing this for myself. I'm going to do it for you. I don't know what that looks like at all. And I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I feel like you're telling me to just be still, to listen, to keep going, so I do. So then about a year after that, I give up my crowd, we get married, it was wonderful, and we're about to move to Nashville. And I guess it was in the summer we were going to. I guess it was December at this time. And I kind of started realizing, if you have a spouse or if you're dating someone seriously or anything like that, those time periods where you kind of just start glorifying that person. Like they're your joy, they're what makes you happy, they're everything to you, and you kind of lose yourself. And I was kind of doing that, and I realized it. And so Craig ended up going with one of his good friends, decided to go hunting. So he went duck hunting because he loves duck hunting. So he goes duck hunting, and I'm sitting there just at home. I guess then it was the next morning, and I started journaling and just kind of talking to God again, and I said, God, I realize I'm worshiping my husband. I told you a year ago that I was going to start serving a purpose that matters, and man, I'm still just serving myself. And so I said, God, even if you take my husband away from me, I'm going to still choose to love you. And I'll still choose to serve whatever purpose you lead me down. Well, at the time, Craig was already gone. He passed away in a hunting accident that morning around 4 a.m. I guess I was writing that around 7 a.m. And he and his friends were in front of a storm called Winter Storm Goliath. It was this massive storm that came in. It was just bigger than they thought it was going to be. And basically, their boat tumped over because there was too much water, and they passed away of hypothermia. So by that evening, I hadn't heard from him, and so I started getting concerned. So I called around and finally called the sheriff's office, and they go and they find his truck by the river, but there's no sign of anybody in it. So that was kind of the first red flag. And of course, you don't want to believe it yet. Maybe he's just stranded somewhere, all those things. So me and his father and his stepmother and sister and brother-in-law, we drive up to, this is in at Kaw Lake in Ponca City, Oklahoma. So it's about 4 hours away. We drive there in sleet and ice. It's storming. It takes us maybe 6 hours to get there. And we have to sit in this freezing cold sheriff's office because all the electricity's out. And I remember everyone's freaking out and everyone's doing anything, but for some reason I just had this piece that said, okay, whatever you say, whatever life is going to look like, I'm going to release my expectations for what I thought life was going to look like. I'm going to release that. And I'm going to choose to do whatever I can to help someone else in this moment. Because I have a choice. I can make this about me, and rightfully so. I deserve to because I'm a widow and this hurts. But at the same time, what kind of impact could I have if I just saw the people in front of me that might need to hear this story, or might need someone to say it's going to be okay if you've experienced it. You can work through it. We can get through this. It may not look the way we thought, but that doesn't mean that life can't be good. And so I chose in that moment. But with 7 days, I guess that day, we found Chase, his friend, and Sam, Craig's hunting dog, had stayed with him and wouldn't leave him. And so when they were searching the banks, the dog started barking at him, and they were able to find Chase's body. But Craig, it took us 7 days. But I do feel like there was a purpose in that, because during that time, news stations, I'm talking about from E! News to CNN to Fox to People Magazine to you name it, my phone was blowing up. I mean, I had to turn it off because I was getting so many notifications from social media things and all these calls wanting interviews and wanting me to have exclusive rights and all of these things. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? And I just turned my phone off, and Craig's dad finally said, Helen, and I'm not trying to be insensitive. And I was like, I don't think you can be very insensitive. It's your son. He goes, I know. Have you ever thought that maybe this is part of your purpose? I mean, maybe you weren't Miss Arkansas to be Miss Arkansas. Maybe you were Miss Arkansas because you needed to learn how to interview. Maybe you learned how to speak when you're younger and get a master's in communication so you can communicate your thoughts well. So I'm just going to say on behalf of the family, we're just going to give this all to you. We're not going to talk. We're not going to take anything. We want this to be you. And that was terrifying, but I didn't want to do it. But he said, Helen, he literally sat me down and gave me my phone, turned it back on. He said, I need you to make a social media post from your heart that says exactly what you want the world to know, because you were made for a purpose, and I think this might be part of it. And I cried and I wrote that out, but it was amazing what that turned into. I had no idea that in time that was going to become my ministry. It wasn't yet. It was going to take me a while. But it was going to become my ministry. I think there was maybe about 50, when we buried Craig, we had a celebration of his life. We did a webcast, and I believe there was like over 50 countries that watched, and it was like over 50,000 computers were on or watching it or whatever. And I think that's kind of cool, because that's actually the same amount of people that follow me, right? Not 50 for my Instagram, but then also these same 50 countries follow my blog. And I'm not just saying those numbers. I'm saying I think it's crazy that still today these same people are there. God gave me this particular audience for a particular reason. He had prepared me for this moment for a particular reason. And even if your story isn't as crazy as mine, because mine's crazy, but I'm going to say even if yours isn't as crazy as mine, there are points in your story, there's points that you can reflect back on, that you can see, I was being prepared, uniquely prepared and given unique gifts to do something that's in front of me. And so that's where I say this, through self-betterment, the best new self, we have an option during these waiting periods. Right? We have an option right now. What's my next thing? What am I going to do? I don't know what my purpose is, or I don't know if I want to stay at this job, or I don't know where you're at right now. But this is probably a waiting period. And in our waiting periods, we have the choice to better ourselves every single day, to grow our unique gifts, to make whatever aspect of ourselves better. Right? You have that option right now. So that when the time comes, when it finally, because you know how life is, it's one way, and all of a sudden, different. So when the time comes, you're prepared. We don't want to be reactive and get to that point and then say, oh gosh, now I got to figure everything out. Right? We don't have to find a purpose later. We can look back and we can find these pieces that say, wow, okay, I think this is leading me towards a purpose, because purpose isn't found in a job. Purpose is found in how I want to live my life every single day. And the reason I say that is because I had a guy friend about a year after Craig passed away. And he asked me, he was one of those friends that just kind of like to ask you really hard questions all of a sudden just to see what you say. It just makes them, it's fun to them for some reason. And so he'd always ask me hard questions, and finally he goes, Helen, what's your purpose? What's your purpose in life? And I kind of sat there for a second, and I thought about it, and I go, I think I'm supposed to help others find hope. And he kind of looked at me weird, and he goes, I ask that question to a lot of people. And he goes, you know what they say? And I say, what? And he goes, they tell me their job. They tell me what job they want. They tell me maybe a hobby that they're really into that they might be able to go pro in. They tell me something that they wish they had done. They never once has it just been, one, about others, but two, something that can be fluid and usable in so many different markets. Basically, you could do it every single moment. It's like, well, I think that's what purpose is about. It's not about a job. I think it's about being able, how am I usable every single moment? And he was just like, that's what I'm saying, Helen. I think that's part of your message. And so I want to tell you that too, about purpose. Your purpose isn't going to be found in a job, in a next accomplishment, in making the next figure, in doing whatever. Purpose is actually found in a perspective change. How you look at life, how you decide, am I going to be my best self today for others, or am I still just going to try to fulfill something for myself? Because if that's what we're going to live in, nothing's ever going to change. And so kind of coming to my conclusion, I do want to say, it was funny, I had my little notebook, didn't look at it. Hopefully I got most of my points. But coming down to my conclusion with everything, it's amazing how life works itself out, and how I truly believe that no matter what happens, no matter if we lose our job, no matter if something bad, whatever it is, there's something to be learned. And I also believe that everything will connect and work itself out in time and for a purpose. So when I was a senior in high school, I dated this guy named Andrew. And I was in love with Andrew. We were going to get married. And so obviously I told my mom we were going to get married, and she was like, that's funny. Okay, you think that. We, of course, break up right after prom. And then go to college, right? You're like, caught that. We get to college. We do life and kind of do our separate ways, maybe date a little bit off and on again. And then senior year, we try again, like, okay, we're older, we're more mature, this is going to work. And then he breaks up with me right before Valentine's Day. I was happy about that. But I said, well, and of course, I was so immature at the time. I was just like, well, can we just wait till after the weekend? He was like, are you kidding me? Like, I just broke up with you, and you're actually asking me to stay with you till after Valentine's Day? I was like, yeah, will you? I was like, I don't want to be by myself on Valentine's Day. He's like, oh my goodness, Helen, no. But I was like, well, what is it? To me, everything everything works out, everything checks out. Why all the boxes are checked, and he said, I don't really want to tell you. So then, of course, I was like, oh, who is she? He goes, no, that's not it. He's like, I don't really want to tell you why I want to break up. And so I go, well, why is that? And he was like, because you're selfish. I was like, what? I was like, I am so nice. I was like, I would give you the shirt off my back. And he goes, well, yeah, you probably would, but you wouldn't ask me why I needed it in the first place. He was like, well, tell me about your best friend, Kaylee. What's going on in Kaylee's life? I kind of sat there for a second. I was like, well, what do you mean? He goes, exactly. You don't know what's going on in her life right now. What's going on in Holly's life, my other best friend? Well, I think she's, you don't know, do you? He goes, so when you talk to people, do you talk about yourself, or do you ask them about them? And I kind of sat there for a second, and of course, was like, no. I'm so not. And he's just like, because I think there's something you need to learn there. And again, of course, at the moment, it wasn't really nice. I probably said some things I shouldn't say, maybe yelled, I don't know. But I left, went back up into my sorority house, and I sat there and I was fuming. But that was kind of that moment that something clicked. That's what allowed me to see that teacher that I told you about. That's what made me stand up in class and say, I just realized I'm not an expert in anything that matters. I realize I'm selfish. I realize I'm about myself. I've been serving my own purpose. I don't care about the people in front of me. I don't care who's in my lane. I don't see any reason in caring. I think just because I smile at you and I'm nice and I know the niceties, that I'm a nice person, that I'm doing good things. And really, I was doing nothing but fulfilling my own desires and nothing that was long-lasting going to make me happy. So about 2.5 years after Craig passed away, Craig's dad came up and saw me and just said, Helen, I just need to tell you, if you're waiting on someone to tell you it's okay to move on, I want to tell you it's okay. You're 29 years old. You don't need to just be proving to somebody that you love Craig by not dating. I told him, look, thank you for that. Of course, we cried. It was so sweet. But I go, honestly, I just don't even know who I would date. I don't know how to use the swipe stuff, and I don't know how to do any of that. I haven't had to, right? I haven't had to even online date. I haven't done any of this. I feel like I am just out of this. I can't do it. And so he was like, well, maybe it's somebody you know. And I was like, I don't know anybody that didn't know Craig. I don't know. So that night, I was cleaning out a back room, which is rare because I never clean, especially if it's a room that I'm not going to see, right? That's like closed and nobody's ever going to go in there. So I went in there and I was cleaning, and I find this old video, and I open it up, and my videotape is one of those big cameras that my dad used to carry around like this. Do y'all remember those? But I open it, and I'm watching the camera, and the first thing that pops up is me in high school after a cheer competition, and Andrew. And we're laughing, we're doing just making funny, we do this really ugly face that I won't do in front of y'all, but we would do this ugly face and laugh about it. And I realized I was crying. And I thought, wait, is he dating anybody? So of course I went to my phone, looked on Facebook, started creeping as hard as I could. And looking through, I was like, oh, maybe he's dating her. He's been in 2 pictures with her. I'm not really sure, but I don't really know. They're not really touching. Are they too close? Or maybe they're just like that couple that doesn't really make other people uncomfortable. I don't know. So I'm there, then I look on his sisters. She doesn't post about that girl, so maybe they're just friends. I don't know. So I decide to message him, and then I'm just embarrassed. I'm like, why did I Facebook message him? I should have just texted him. So then then I texted him, but then I was like, oh gosh, I look desperate because I just texted him and I messaged him. So I just turned my phone off because I was like, I don't want to think about it anymore. Stressed out. Right? I turned it off. That means it didn't happen. So on the opposite side of that, on the other side of the phone, Andrew receives this text message. And he said he looked at it, and he woke up, I guess it was the next morning because he was going hunting with his dad, but he looked over at his phone, it popped up, and he smiled then he goes, thank you, Craig, because when Craig passed away, Andrew had been single for 3 years because he just felt called to just better himself, and his parents thought he was crazy because they wanted grandkids, and he was like, I just feel like I'm supposed to be on my own. I'm supposed to be bettering myself during this waiting period, and I don't know why. But I need you to trust me. When Craig passed away, Andrew came home early from work and was crying about it, kind of cried for me and what was going on, but he prayed and he just Craig, I don't know if you can hear me, but I just want you to know, I just feel like I'm supposed to be still, but I want to say that I love how you took care of Helen, but I still love her, but I know I'm supposed to be still. So if I'm the guy that you want to take care of her, I need you to lead her back to me, because I'm not going to say a word. And so that was 2 years on the day, I believe, when that happened. So I text him, and he received it, and he said, "Thank you, Craig," because he didn't make one move, he didn't do anything, and it worked itself out. And together, of course, we get together, we date for like a couple of months, get married. We've been married for a year now. On April 21st, so that was the last weekend. So on Easter, we've been married for a year. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. But he has been so awesome because, and this is kind of where I want to close out, he is so joyful for me in my testimony and what I do. He doesn't ask me not to obviously talk about Craig or not to, this is my life and this is part of my story. But I love that we are able to look back and say, wow, look how it all comes full circle. How we didn't understand, why didn't this work out back here? But instead of letting that stop us, we moved forward, we kept bettering ourselves, we kept reflecting, we kept trying to understand, try to be a better version of who we want to be one day. And then when the time came, it was time for us to be together. And it was perfect. And while this is about a relationship, I believe this about our jobs, about our relationships, about every aspect of our lives. Instead of forcing it, instead of pushing it, trying to make it happen before it's supposed to, I think we're supposed to do everything we can, our best ability, but then it's our turn to be patient and know when to be still, when to push, when to better ourselves. But ultimately, it should be having a perspective of wanting to better ourselves for others, for wanting to find a purpose that doesn't fulfill our own desires, but rather betters the world that's been placed directly in front of us. Because we might not be able to fix the entire world, but we can fix this little sliver directly in front of us, whatever our job is, whatever we're doing at the moment. And if you don't know what you're supposed to do, if you don't know your purpose yet, then I really want to encourage you to stop for a second and just reflect. Take some time, go home, reflect on your story. What in your story are key turning points that have given you these experiences and these abilities? Because you have unique abilities. Look back and reflect on those things and decide, okay, what are my best abilities and how am I going to better these things to serve a purpose that no longer serves me, but serves others. Thank you so much.